British prosecutors have been handed a 240-page dossier outlining war crimes committed in Gaza. Now, you might think, we already know about the countless war crimes that Israel has inflicted on Palestinians in the enclave. This dossier, though, isn't about Israelis. It's about British nationals, 10 of them to be exact, who are being accused of breaking international law while fighting in the Strip. Now, their alleged crimes range from the targeted killings of civilians and aid workers, including by sniper fire, to indiscriminate attacks on civilian areas, including hospitals. And the case has been built by a group of British human rights lawyers and researchers from The Hague. Now, one of those lawyers is Michael Mansfield, who's best known for his work representing the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire, the family of Stephen Lawrence and the Birmingham Six. And he spoke to Novara Media outside New Scotland Yard after submitting the file, where he had this message for any other British nationals thinking of fighting for Israel.
I think it's a message to anyone, British national or dual national, that before you sign up to an army, do ensure that the army is conducting itself lawfully and you're not participating in unlawful acts against international law, particularly war crimes. They're obvious ones like murder, extermination, displacement, and so on. And I think that's, you not only have to, that's the message, you have to think carefully. That's not to say you don't, but I'd like to just point out a large number of Israeli soldiers have refused to serve. They're called the refusers. So they've decided they don't want to be part of an army that is committing potentially plausible genocide.
The report has been submitted on behalf of the Gaza-based Palestinian Centre for Human Rights and the British-based Public Interest Law Centre. It covers offences allegedly committed in the territory from October 2023 to May 2024. According to the report, each of the crimes attributed to the suspects, some of whom are dual nationals, amounts to a war crime or crime against humanity. Raji Sarani is director of the Palestinian Centre for Human Rights and told Novara what he hoped the report would achieve.
We want to make sure that the British Police Prosecutor Office cannot claim they don't know. It's their legal obligation to follow any who violate the law, including UK citizens. UK is not doing its obligation whether here against the British citizens or against the Israeli genociders, and they are not supporting ICC prosecutor, and they are not supporting ICC provisional decisions. So it's about time for UK to have rule of law for Palestine, not the rule of jungle.
Novara also spoke to barrister Sean Summerfield. He took part in compiling the dossier of crimes allegedly committed by the 10 British nationals in Gaza. He detailed some of those crimes to Novara.
It's the spectrum of war crimes and crimes against humanity. There's an enumerated list of war crimes, and it includes everything from murder to forced displacement to consecration of particular sites. The evidence we submit is clear, and the next steps now are for the Metropolitan Police to investigate. War crimes, crimes against humanity, are some of the gravest crimes it's possible to commit as a human being. And so there is now an obligation on the Met Police to investigate, because those crimes are a part of domestic legislation. They're crimes in England and Wales. And now there's that obligation on them. We want to see them investigate the material that we've submitted, conduct their own investigations using the tools at their disposal, with a view, if the evidence is there, and we suggest that it is, to apply for arrest warrants and ultimately with an eye on prosecutions.
Now, British law means we can't bring you the full contents of the dossier, but Novara's Harriet Williamson has reported these excerpts from witness statements to the case in her article on the Brits accused of war crimes. "I could not bear what I saw, dead bodies scattered next to each other," an anonymised witness said in testimony collected by the PCHR. The witness recalled removing a blanket from the dead to find, quote, "the bodies of my uncle and his son, my nephews and my brother-in-law, along with other displaced people's bodies." Another witness said soldiers, quote, "ordered my father, husband and children to strip," and they were taken one by one into the middle of the glass-strewn living room, where a soldier beat them with an electric cable and a large billiard stick. It goes on, at a medical facility, a third witness said they saw corpses scattered on the ground, especially in the middle of the hospital courtyard, where many dead bodies were buried in a mass grave. A bulldozer ran over a dead body in a horrific and heart-wrenching scene, desecrating the dead, the witness recalled. And they also said a bulldozer demolished part of the hospital. As I say, for legal reasons, the names of the British nationals being accused of war crimes have not been released. Novara, though, understands they include officer-level individuals in the IDF. So what are the precedents here? And when it comes to British nationals fighting abroad and committing potential war crimes? Well, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the UK government issued this warning to British nationals. So it says, British nationals fighting in Ukraine, if you travel to Ukraine to fight or to assist others engaged in the war, your activities may amount to offences under UK legislation. You could be prosecuted on your return to the UK. Now, oddly, British nationals who want to go and fight for Israel have received no similar warning. And despite apparently endless evidence of war crimes having been committed by Israel in Gaza, the British government has continually failed to impose meaningful sanctions on the country. Independent MP Ayub Khan, who is supporting the case against the 10 Brits, gave Novara his views on the government's lack of action.
I'm a lawyer, and I know Keir Starmer is, I'd like to use the word allegedly a lawyer, but he's a lawyer, humanitarian lawyer. So and he's worked for the DPP. And so he understands the principles of evidence and criminality, all of those issues which would have been second nature to him. You'd expect people that are professionals in law, including Mr. Lammy, take those bold steps because they can see what's taking place. And to run a narrative which is entirely disingenuous, I see the British public see what's happening, streamlined, on a daily basis. And for leaders to just shy away and not implement the sanctions that are necessary is a shame on the British system, full stop.
Ash, I mean, neither of us are legal experts. I'm not going to give my sort of take on how this case will proceed. I mean, I suppose one thing that does stand out to me is sort of the difference here between how the government have treated this conflict or war or genocide and how they've treated other ones. You hear so sort of little criticism of people going to fight for the IDF, even though the knowledge of what the IDF are doing is just out there for all to see. And what do you think is the significance of this?
There are limits to what we can say about this case legally, but I can talk about the politics of it. Because one of the things that Israel's advocates very often say when they're trying to, weasel out of accountability for what Israel is actually doing is that they say, why don't you hold other countries to the same standard you're holding Israel to? Why don't you talk about this country, this country, this country? Where there are human rights abuses or, ethnic cleansing or genocides which have been carried out. And the first thing is that very often are protesting about those countries. It's just as Israel's advocates choose not to see it. But the second thing is that Israel seems to have singularly preferential treatment from our government and from the government of the United States. I cannot think of another country which has the same relationship, has the same leeway for British citizens and American citizens to go and fight in their army, which demands more in the way of military aid and commits graver human rights abuses with that military aid. I can't think of another country with that sort of preferential treatment. And I think this goes to the heart of how this case may be received by our political leaders, which is, well, if we start to hold British citizens accountable for allegedly carrying out war crimes in Gaza, well, then you have to start looking at the permissive climate created by British politicians themselves. I've talked already about the comments made by Keir Starmer and Emily Thornberry giving Israel the green light to cut off water, fuel, food, medicines, key aid to Gaza at the beginning of the war. Their insistence on Israel's right to self-defense, though, of course, there is no legal right to defend yourself when you're the occupying power. And also, I think that when you're bombing hospitals, refugee camps, and opening fire on citizens and sniping children. It is clearly not self-defense. So the minute you start opening the box of what have British citizens done abroad in Gaza, well, then you have to start looking at what is it that British politicians have done to enable what's been done in Gaza. So it's in nobody in Westminster's interest to take these allegations particularly seriously, because then they're in the frame as well.